Hi everyone, my name is Monique.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And today we're going to be discussing the newest expansion for Architects of the West Kingdom called Works of Wonder.
Yeah, this one's now currently on Kickstarter. It's actually going to end very shortly. It's going to be ending on Thursday night. And it is a second expansion for Architects of the West Kingdom. If you aren't familiar with that game, Monique and I have played 2 different playthroughs of it. We will leave links to those videos up here if you want to check those out. And so we're just going to basically be discussing what goes in this box and also a little bit more about the details of the game.
And like Naveen is mentioning, this expansion is currently on Kickstarter, but there is less than like 48 hours to go.
Yeah.
And so they had sent us a prototype copy of the expansion just in case we were able to get to it. So we figured we'll just put out a really quick video kind of discussing the components of this new expansion as well as just some of our thoughts. The Kickstarter is not only for the new expansion, but it also includes a new collector's box that can hold everything Architects of the West Kingdom specifically. Right. So it'll be able to hold this expansion as well as the one previous. And it's also an opportunity for you to add on any of the games that are a part of this world, including Paladins and Viscounts. And I believe there will not be a pledge manager once it closes, but things are all going to go to retail.
Yes.
And so, but if you are interested in checking it out before it closes, we'll include a link to the Kickstarter down below.
And of course, last but not least, if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
And with that, we are ready to begin. So if you please direct your attention to the center of the table, we're all set up here technically for a 2-player game of Architects of the West Kingdom with the new expansion. Yep. And so we are not going to talk about how the base game plays. If you're interested in learning the game, we have included a teach at the start of our playthrough video.
Yep.
So you can go ahead and check that out. But we are just going to kind of briefly discuss all the different components of the new expansion, which are really only 4 main things. So this new expansion introduces the Princess, the Profiteer, these Works of Wonder, which we have the opportunity to build, as well as a new track, which is the Influence track. Sort of like the Virtue track, but now it's Influence. Yep. And as you can see, this is kind of a new add-on to the main board that also includes 2 new slots for Apprentice cards. And so now you always have 10 showing rather than 8. Also with this expansion, there are new rewards cards that go here. There are new building cards as well as new apprentices. And of course, we have more players. Yes, the player boards are specifically fit for this expansion because now everybody has a starting amount of influence and stuff. Now, the Princess and the Profiteer are both used in conjunction with these contribution cards, which are also used in order to build these wonders. But what they do is they tell us where each of these pieces are going to start the game. So in this example, the Profiteer will start at the quarry, if I'm reading that correctly, and the Princess will start at the forest. And so the way that these 2 work is anytime somebody places a piece at the location that has the Profiteer, then they gain an influence. And influence can be spent in a number of ways. You can spend 2 influence in order to prevent losing a virtue, or having to pay 2 silver as long as it's not taxed to the tax stand. Or you can spend 4 influence instead of 1 gold or 1 marble. So it's kind of a nice new way for you to be able to spend these resources without having to get them, because sometimes gold and marble are really hard to get, right?
Totally. And
at the end of the game, whoever has most influence gets 4 gold. There are also some bonuses on the track here, and they specifically allow you to draw building cards. And so if I cross from the 4 to the 5 influence, I get to draw a building card. If I go down in influence because I spend it, and then cross that threshold again, then I get the bonus again. So I can keep on doing that if I want to. And whenever anybody captures workers at the location of the Profiteer, they gain a virtue because that's what the Profiteer wants you to do, right? And all of these effects, by the way, are illustrated right here. So this is what the Profiteer does, and this is what the Princess does. And so speaking of the Princess, whenever you place a worker at the Princess's location, you are allowed to make 1 single contribution to the current contribution card. So all of these cards show 1 of each type of resource that you can contribute to the cause. And the whole purpose of this is to help build the Works of Wonder, which are down here. Before we talk about the Works of Wonder, I just want to mention that if you ever capture workers from the Princess's location, you go down a virtue because she doesn't want to see that. She doesn't want you to be capturing workers there.
She does not want to see that stuff, yeah. Not in front of her. Okay,
so back to the Works of Wonder. There are 5 different types of these wonder buildings, I guess, and they all pertain to the 5 different resource types. Like this building corresponds to the clay resource or brick, and then we have one for wood, etc. In order to build these wonders, for all intents and purposes, they are considered buildings. So you build them in the same way that you would do a standard building, but they all cost a certain amount of that type of resource. So this building requires 15 clay, as well as a certain amount of influence. So this one costs 7, and money. When you build them, they're worth a certain amount of points at the end of the game. They also immediately gain you 2 virtue. And upon building the Wonder, you're going to place it on one of, I believe there are 6 different options of locations where you can place the Wonder out. So if I were to put this, say, in the mines, I guess, or I guess in the forest, say in the forest. Anytime I send a worker there, it's as if I have either one additional worker, so I could send this worker here and gain 2 wood instead of just the 1, or I gain an influence. So now this is like my building that'll gain me benefits every time I go to that location. And so back to this contribution card. Over the course of the game, whenever people go to the princess's location, they may or may not contribute a resource to the card. For doing so, you immediately gain 2 influence, and some of the resource types also gain you an additional benefit. Like this gold spot will gain you a virtue. This one gets you a reward card. But what happens is during the black market reset, all of the resources that are on this contribution card are going to be placed on the corresponding Wonder as long as they haven't been built yet. And so that will decrease the cost of that Wonder for when somebody does go to build it. Now, the black market reset phase also has a few extra things that are specific to this expansion. And so going back to the princess and the profiteer, during the black market reset, whoever has workers in the same location as a profiteer will face the consequence of whatever is on the consequence card. Now, these are the opposite side of the contribution cards, because after you resolve, or like during the black market reset, you're going to take the current contribution card and flip it face down. And so before you do that, you'll resolve the current consequence card so that you can actually see what the consequence is going to be before the black market reset happens. Right.
So maybe you want to get into a position where you're getting the benefits of whatever the princess has, or maybe you're trying to avoid over at the quarry as of right now what's going on with the profiteer.
Exactly. And the reason for that is because whoever has the most number of workers at the princess's location gains whatever the benefit is on this side of the card, which in this case is 3 building cards. So that is kind of an aspect of the game that you're kind of trying to time properly, right? Because you always kind of worry when that black market reset is going to happen. And now there are additional incentives or penalties for getting there. Once you resolve that and this gets flipped, then the profiteer as well as the princess will move to different locations. So it looks like the princess goes to the workshop down here, and the profiteer will go to the silversmith, which is right there. And that's pretty much everything that comes with this new expansion. And so I just want to mention that this new expansion can be played with pretty much all modes of play with the original base game. You can combine it with the other expansion, which is the Age of Artisans. You can play it solo, you can play it with the Tome Saga, as well as with a co-op variant. And so what are your thoughts, I guess?
I think my favorite element is the fact that you can spend 4 influence for gold or for marble. Because sometimes when I play this game, I get stuck where I'm like, I only have 1 gold, this card needs 2 gold. How do I get this other gold? And it's kind of like this roundabout way. It is nice to be able to spend that. And I do like the fact that we are getting benefits from working with the princess as well as with the profiteer. But there's also that kind of like duality, especially with the profiteer, of like if you work with them a little too much, you can get bitten off by that.
Now, this isn't a full review, and the reason why is because we only really played it at 2, and we haven't played it enough to make it a true review. But I do want to mention that my favorite part is probably the princess and the profiteer. I think they're funny in a thematic way, and they do add more variety, I guess, to the strategy. There are also apprentice cards that work specifically with the princess and the profiteer. They gain you benefits during black market resets if you're at either of their locations, I guess. The Wonders we didn't really focus on.
Yeah, it felt like a lot to contribute for just 2 people.
Yeah, and it didn't scale. For a 2-player game, it's still the same number of resources that are required to build them. And so for us, we just focused primarily on the influence track as well as the princess and the profiteer. But those 2 are enough, I guess, for you to strategize differently than in the base game. Anyway, those are our brief thoughts and a general overview as to what you can expect from this expansion. Like we were mentioning at the beginning of the video, we have included a link to a Kickstarter down below in case you'd like to check it out. But otherwise, if you have any questions about anything you saw here today, please feel free to leave us a comment down below and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you all so much for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.